Let's give a big hand for our new division director, Ryan McAllister. I clapped like everyone else. Polite. Controlled. Each slap of my palms felt like a slow applause at my own funeral. My name's Daniel Knox. I'm 41. Divorced. Father of one. And as of this morning, I just watched 7 years of my life get handed to a kid who's been here for 7 months. Ryan smiled like he earned something. He hadn't. He'd shadowed me for half a year, nodded through meetings, mimicked language he didn't understand. Now he wore a tailored suit and a badge with a title I'd been promised 3 performance reviews ago. The conference room smelled like burnt coffee and forced congratulations. Charles Heller, our senior VP, stood with his chest puffed like he was unveiling a monument. Ryan's going to take us into the next phase of our growth. His energy, his vision, it's exactly what this company needs. I'd heard those words before, just not for me. He's got the degree, the pedigree, the perspective. I had the experience, the fieldwork, the 70-hour weeks. But that wasn't enough. And Charles? He was Ryan's uncle. Nobody said it out loud, but we all knew. Nepotism dressed in a suit and called fresh leadership. Charles smiled toward me. Daniel's been instrumental in preparing Ryan for this role. I nodded. Professional. Expressionless. Like that was the prize, not the job, but the privilege of training the guy who took it. I looked around the room. Most people avoided eye contact. A few gave me tight, sympathetic smiles. HR clapped half-heartedly. The logistics team, my team, didn't move at all. When it ended, I packed up my notepad slowly. Not out of sadness. Not even anger. Just calculation. Charles stopped me at the door. Daniel, can you stay a minute? I turned. Of course. We stood alone. He loosened his tie like he was about to confess to something. I know this might not be what you expected, he said. But Ryan brings in new ideas. Youthful drive. Sure, I said. It's not a reflection on your performance. You're solid. Reliable. One of the best. Just not the best enough. I nodded again. Neutral. Understood. You're a team player, Daniel. That's why we value you. Value. I'd been valued, right out of the position I built myself into. I appreciate the clarity, I said. He smiled, relaxed, thinking it was over. But I'd just gotten started. Back at my desk, I sat in silence for a full minute. The office buzzed around me. Normal Monday energy. Phones ringing. Forklift updates flashing on the internal dashboard. People pretending everything was fine. I opened a blank document. Typed a title, Transition Notes. Because if I was going to leave, and I would, I wasn't going to walk. I was going to vanish so cleanly that by the time they felt the hole, it would already be too late. Monday came and went like it always did. Early emails, missed inventory from Lubbock, a forklift down in the Phoenix yard. I handled it all like usual. Not a ripple. Not a raised voice. If anyone noticed how quiet I'd become, they didn't mention it. Maybe they thought I was licking my wounds. Maybe they thought I'd get over it. I didn't. I observed. Ryan moved into the director's office on the 3rd floor. The old one with the glass wall and automatic blinds. The office I used to pass and imagine myself in. Now it had a new nameplate. McAllister R. It looked like it had always been there. Charles gave him the royal treatment. Morning coffee walks, sit-ins on strategic calls, a shiny parking spot near the front. My work? Still the same. Vendor issues, fulfillment errors, freight reroutes. Except now I reported to a guy who still asked what a BOL was. Ryan wasn't cruel. That's the part that made it harder. He was polite, almost overly grateful. Hey Daniel, he'd say, can you help me understand this distribution chain for Gulf Corps? Or, you've got such a great way of handling supplier pushback. Mind if I sit in on your next call with Wagner Group? I said yes. I always said yes. Because the best revenge doesn't come from protest. It comes from preparation. One afternoon, I overheard a conversation in the hallway. Ryan and Charles, just out of view. How's he handling the change? Charles asked. Daniel? He's been incredible, Ryan said. Total pro. I couldn't do half this without him. Charles laughed. He's old school. Loyal. That generation doesn't like rocking the boat. He'll settle down. I noted the words. Not emotionally. Logically. Because what Charles didn't know was that I wasn't settling into anything. I was making space. Letting them build their comfort. Letting them think they'd won. That Friday, I drove home later than usual. My daughter, Emma, was already waiting on the porch. 13 years old, smarter than most adults I know. She gave me a hug and stepped back. You look like someone stole your bike. I smiled tight. Long week. She followed me inside, dumped her backpack, and sat at the kitchen table. Did you get the promotion? I hesitated. They gave it to someone else. Oh, she said. Then, after a moment, was it that guy with the shiny hair who came to the holiday party? I nodded. She picked up a baby carrot and bit it in half like she was considering litigation. You should quit, she said, blunt as ever. I might, I answered. But not yet. Because I wasn't done watching. It happened on a Thursday night. I was staying late, finishing an audit on a shipment discrepancy from San Diego. The office was mostly dark, just the blue glow of monitors and the low hum of vending machines. I liked the quiet. It made people honest. I was heading toward the break room when I heard voices coming from Charles's office. His door was cracked just enough, and the acoustics in that hallway made it easy to catch every word. Look, I get it, said a voice I didn't recognize at first, older, sharper. Probably Gerald Metz from corporate. But you told us Daniel was next in line. I did, Charles replied. But Ryan has the degree, and the board likes the optics of fresh leadership. There was a pause. Then, Daniel's been handling Southwest logistics since before Ryan finished undergrad. He's more qualified. Charles sighed. Daniel's reliable, but he's not a visionary. He'll keep doing what he's told. He needs this job, kid, mortgage, divorce. He's not going anywhere. I stood there for 5 full seconds. Let the words sink in. He needs this job. He'll stay. He'll fall in line. That was the moment. Not when I lost the promotion. Not when I had to explain to Emma that some people get things handed to them. No, this. Being reduced to a calculation. An assumption. Like loyalty made me a fixture, not a person. I walked back to my desk. Saved the shipment file. Shut down my machine. Drove home in silence. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat at my kitchen table until 3 a.m., staring at the wall like it might tell me something I didn't already know. My hands were steady. My thoughts weren't angry, just ordered. They thought they owned me. Thought I was predictable. I started making lists. Not revenge, not yet. Just names. Contacts. Vendors. Carriers. Friends in high places who owed me favors. Clients who called me when things went wrong. Not Ryan. Not Charles, me. The web I'd built was tighter than they realized. The next morning, I came in at 8 sharp. Ryan gave me a thumbs up from his desk. Morning, Daniel. Morning. He didn't notice the change. No one did. I wasn't angry. I wasn't vengeful. I was clear. 2 weeks later, I'd have everything I needed. And then I'd vanish so cleanly, it would feel like a structural failure. I submitted my resignation at 4:57 p.m. on a Friday. I timed it perfectly, just before end-of-week shutdown, when everyone was too busy or too tired to process much beyond traffic and dinner plans. I walked into Charles's office and handed him a sealed envelope. What's this? He asked, already frowning. My notice, I said, calm as glass. He opened it. His face did something between a twitch and a flinch as his eyes ran down the page. This can't be serious. It is. You're leaving because of the promotion? No, I said. I'm leaving because you thought I wouldn't. He stared at me like I'd sprouted horns. Daniel, this isn't how professionals handle disappointment. We've invested in you. You used me to train your nephew, I said. That's not an investment. That's theft with a smile. He stood, suddenly defensive. We trusted you with everything. And I delivered. Flawlessly. For years. This is a mistake. You're burning bridges. I nodded. Then it's a good day to light a match. He tried switching tactics. What about your daughter? Your bills? Your reputation? Emma's proud of me, and I've saved more than you think. He looked genuinely unsettled now, and I realized something. Charles had always assumed control equaled loyalty. That being someone's boss meant owning their backbone. He didn't know how to handle someone walking away without slamming a door. I left the office and walked to my desk like it was any other day. Logged off. Locked my drawers. Said nothing. Most people didn't even notice. But Ryan did. Everything okay? He asked. Just cleaning up. You'll be getting an email. That night, I took Emma out for burgers. She watched me for a long time between fries. You look lighter, she said. I am. You quit. I nodded. She smiled like it was the most natural thing in the world. Took you long enough. Yeah, I said, but now it starts. And it did. Because the next move wasn't about walking away. It was about pulling threads. Carefully. Quietly. Until the whole thing came undone. By Monday morning, the tremors began. I arrived at the usual time, 8:15 a.m., even though technically I didn't have to. I had 2 weeks left, and I intended to use them well. Ryan looked like he hadn't slept. He had 3 screens open, each more chaotic than the last. Spreadsheets, shipping manifests, vendor emails. "Hey, Daniel," he said, voice tight. "Quick question about Morrison Steel. They're threatening to pull the contract if the Tucson order doesn't ship by Wednesday. I can't figure out which supplier is holding it up." I leaned over. His inbox was a disaster. Half the threads were misfiled. He had 3 unrelated vendors CC'd on the wrong chain, and he was looking at the wrong version of the delivery schedule. "Morrison's not Tucson," I said. "That's Delta Core in El Paso. You're mixing the backups." He blinked. "Oh." I spent the next hour walking him through the chain, step by step. No shortcuts, no spite, just facts. And that's when it clicked. Ryan wasn't stupid, but he was wildly unprepared. Charles had thrown him into operations like a kid tossed into the deep end of a pool because his uncle thought he could float. I didn't sabotage him. I trained him. Again, because if the house was going to collapse, I didn't need to push. I just needed to leave the door unlocked. That afternoon, I started calling vendors. Not to poach, just to inform. "Hi, this is Daniel Knox. Just wanted to let you know I'll be transitioning out of Redmond Logistics by the end of next week." There was always a pause. Then, "Wait, you're leaving?" "I am. If there's any disruption in the next few weeks, contact Ryan McAllister. He's the new division director." Longer pauses. More careful tones. "McAllister, that's Charles's nephew, right?" "Correct." Some didn't hide the concern. Some did. But every single one of them updated my contact info. Everyone asked where I'd be going next. And I didn't tell them. Not yet. Later that evening, I got a text from Gerald Metz, the corporate guy I'd overheard weeks ago. "Charles told me you're leaving. Is that true?" I replied, "Yes. 2 more weeks." He didn't respond. But the next morning, Morrison Steel's procurement manager called Ryan directly and asked why he didn't understand the bracket spec sheet. Then copied half the executive team on a follow-up. By noon, Charles had called me into his office. He looked tired. "Daniel, can we talk about reconsidering your decision?" I smiled polite. Too late. Because now, finally, they were beginning to realize what I'd really taken with me. Not vengeance. Leverage. By Wednesday, cracks became fault lines. Tyler Stone from Borderline Transport called Ryan 3 times before noon. "I know, because Ryan asked me to sit in on the 3rd one. Can you just listen and jump in if I screw something up?" he asked. I agreed. Tyler's tone was sharp the moment the call connected. "Ryan, we've been working with Daniel for 6 years. Why are we suddenly being rerouted through Dallas?" Ryan glanced at me, panicked. "Well, we're adjusting distribution centers to optimize." "That's not optimization. That's delay. Dallas puts us 2 days behind on every shipment to Albuquerque." I cut in. "Tyler, that reroute was a legacy test we shelved 2 years ago. It shouldn't have been reactivated." A pause. "Daniel, are you still there?" "For the moment." "Well, damn. At least someone knows what they're doing." Ryan mouthed, "Thank you," as I muted the call. I didn't answer. That night, I received 3 LinkedIn messages from companies I hadn't contacted yet. Word was getting around. Thursday morning, Ryan looked worse than the day before. His shirt was wrinkled. His desk a mess. Charles wasn't in. Rumor had it he was called to HQ in Denver. I didn't ask. Instead, I started documenting everything. Client workflows, supplier escalation chains, emergency protocols. I packaged it all into a clean, labeled folder titled Transition D. Knox. Because I wasn't going to be blamed when it all fell apart. Mid-afternoon, my daughter sent me a picture. Her school certificate for excellence in critical thinking. The caption read, "Like father, like daughter." I sat back, let that sink in. She was watching. Always had been. And I knew. This wasn't just about walking away. It was about walking away well. At 4:30 p.m., Gerald Metz called me. "Daniel, listen. I've spoken with Charles. There may be an opportunity to reconsider the director title. You'd work alongside Ryan. More of a dual leadership model." I leaned back in my chair. "That's a generous offer," I said. "So you'll stay?" "No," I replied. "But I appreciate the confirmation." Confirmation that you finally understand what you lost. Click. Friday, I sent one last internal email. Subject line, Transition Summary. It had everything. Clean, precise, professional. At the bottom I wrote, "It's been an honor to serve this company. What comes next is up to you. Then I shut the laptop, and I didn't look back. My final day came without fanfare. No cake, no send-off speech, just a handshake from HR and a generic card with 7 signatures, 4 of which were spelled wrong. Ryan avoided eye contact. Charles was still in Denver, handling internal matters. The silence spoke louder than any farewell ever could. I cleaned out my desk. One framed photo of Emma, a pair of noise-canceling headphones, and a yellow legal pad with years of margin notes and doodles. That was it. At 5:01 p.m., I walked out of Redmond Logistics for the last time. 3 hours later, I was having dinner with Emma at a small Italian place she liked. She asked if I felt weird. I said no. She asked if I was scared. No, I said. They should be. Because I already had 3 offers on the table, and more calls lined up for Monday. Not because I was flashy, not because I chased titles, but because people knew I delivered, and they were tired of dealing with Charles Heller's nephew. The following week, I started consulting, unofficially. Quietly, I advised a mid-sized logistics firm in Albuquerque on handling multi-vendor contracts, then another in Tulsa on rebuilding their routing algorithms. Nothing formal, but the word spread. 2 weeks later, I got a call from Beacon Edge, a rival firm based in Austin. Their VP of Ops didn't waste time. We heard you left Redmond. We've been trying to break into Southwest Freight for years. You interested in building something new? I was. The offer came with the same title Charles had denied me. Better pay, full autonomy, and best of all, a blank slate. I gave them one condition: I bring my network with me. They didn't hesitate. By the time my onboarding finished, Morrison Steel, Borderline Transport, and Gulf Core had already signaled interest. Not because I asked, because they called me. They weren't loyal to Redmond. They were loyal to competence, to consistency, to me. At the same time, the rumblings at Redmond grew louder. I heard from a friend in procurement that 3 accounts had gone dark. One pulled out of a multi-year deal over miscommunication and mishandled deliveries. Ryan tried to salvage it, apparently. But confidence, it turns out, doesn't fix a failing shipment route. Charles flew back in from Denver. Emergency meetings. More restructuring. It wouldn't help. Because what they'd lost wasn't just me. It was everything I quietly held together while they looked the other way. And now, they were holding a bag full of promises with no one left to cash them. 3 weeks into my new position at Beacon Edge, I got an unexpected call. Daniel, it's Susan Blake from Morrison Steel. Her voice was tense, clipped. The kind of tone people use when something's bleeding money. I just got off a call with Ryan McAllister, she said. We're terminating our contract with Redmond. Effective immediately. I stayed silent. Daniel. He tried to renegotiate shipping lead times. Said they were too aggressive for his team. We've had that schedule for 5 years. I'm sorry to hear that, I said. We've already drafted a new RFP. You'll be getting it Monday. 2 days later, Copperhouse Freight followed. Then Pelham Equipment. By the end of the month, Redmond had lost over $14 million in contracts, all from clients I had built, managed, and kept stable. Charles tried to stop the bleeding, hired consultants, reorganized the entire Southwest division, even posted a heartfelt video message to LinkedIn, talking about growing pains and a bold new future. But everyone in the industry saw it for what it was, panic wrapped in a suit. I received a message from Ryan that week. Just 2 words. I'm sorry. I didn't reply. Instead, I poured myself a coffee, opened my laptop, and continued refining our expansion blueprint. Beacon Edge had given me full control of the Southwest region. Warehouses, fleet partnerships, hiring. I moved fast, but precise. Every time Redmond lost a contract, we were ready. Not because I wanted revenge, because I knew what those clients needed. And I was still the only one who had delivered it. Around that time, Emma asked me what was going on. She had seen me smiling more, sleeping better. I just stopped waiting for people to value me, I told her, and started doing it myself. She didn't say anything, but later I found a sticky note on my desk. It said, "About time." Redmond kept sinking. Charles stopped appearing in company emails. Rumors flew, something about internal audits, board pressure, a vote of no confidence. Ryan, meanwhile, was last seen clearing out his office in the middle of a Thursday, cardboard box in hand. The empire they built on assumptions had collapsed under the weight of a truth they never respected. Some things can't be replaced. Some people, when they leave, take the whole foundation with them. 2 months after Redmond's collapse began, it finally made the news. An article in Industry West Logistics ran a headline that read, "Nepotism backfires. Redmond Logistics bleeds clients after botched leadership change." The piece was brutal. It laid everything bare. How Ryan was unqualified, how Charles had fast-tracked his own nephew into a role he didn't understand, and how their most critical accounts vanished in less than 6 weeks. No names were mentioned directly, but anyone who worked in the sector could connect the dots. Beacon Edge's inbox blew up. Susan from Morrison forwarded the article to me with a simple note. "Told you it was a mistake." Meanwhile, Charles retired, a quiet exit with no fanfare, just a vague press release about New Horizons. Ryan disappeared completely. Rumors said he enrolled in a graduate program out west. Something about supply chain analytics. I almost laughed. I didn't, because this wasn't about revenge anymore. It had evolved into something colder, simpler, removal. The system corrected itself. Emma and I went hiking that weekend. Clear skies, fresh air. Halfway up the trail, she stopped, looked at me, and said, "You did it, didn't you?" I raised an eyebrow. "All those people who didn't listen, you didn't yell, didn't fight. You just let them fall." I nodded. "Gravity does the heavy lifting." She smiled. That Monday, I got a call from a recruiter I hadn't spoken to in years. "Daniel, I don't know what you've done, but your name's suddenly on every executive shortlist from here to Denver." I said thank you. Then I declined, because I wasn't going anywhere. Beacon Edge was thriving. The Southwest Division was expanding. And for the first time in years, I woke up without a weight on my chest. The real victory wasn't the fall of Redmond. It was the silence that followed. No lawsuits. No last-ditch sabotage. Just the steady unraveling of a company that bet on blood over backbone. And lost. A year passed. Beacon Edge Southwest Division posted record growth. We opened 2 new distribution centers. Hired 25 full-time staff. Client retention hit 98%. I didn't celebrate publicly, didn't post victories online, or gloat in meetings. I stayed quiet, focused. Let results speak. Then, one afternoon, in a quiet cafe near the Austin airport, I saw him. Ryan. He was sitting alone, hunched over a tablet and a thick spiral-bound textbook. I recognized the title, Logistics Network Design and Optimization. He looked up. Our eyes met. I nodded once. He hesitated, then gestured to the seat across from him. "Daniel," he said, "didn't expect to see you here." "Business trip," I replied. "Mind if I sit?" "Please." He looked older, less glossy. The confidence he once wore like cologne had been replaced with something more human, reflection. "I'm in school," he said. "University of Texas. Master's in Operations Strategy." "That's good," I said. "I had no idea what I was doing back then," he admitted. "You tried to help. I wasn't ready." I nodded. "You were thrown into it. That wasn't your fault." He tapped the textbook. "I'm learning now. The right way?" Silence sat between us for a minute. Comfortable. Then he added, "My uncle still says you sabotaged him." I didn't flinch. "What do you think?" "I think you were patient. Precise. And no one saw it coming because you never raised your voice." I took a sip of coffee. "Noise is for people with no plan." He chuckled. "You ever think about coming back? Leading a national branch? Starting your own?" "I'm exactly where I need to be." Ryan extended his hand. "Thanks for not sinking me harder than I deserve. You did that on your own." I left him with the check. Paid both bills. No reason to be petty. 6 months later, I read that Charles Heller filed for bankruptcy. A private settlement with Redmond's board left him with nothing. Ryan graduated with honors. Took a junior analyst role in Phoenix. This time, entry level. The right way? The nephew learned what the uncle never understood. Respect isn't gifted. It's earned. And sometimes, the most elegant revenge is simply walking away and building something better.